All right, everyone. A reporter for the New York Times, Greg Howard, has decided that many white women in New York City are racist because they expect him to veer out of their way when they're walking past. He can only envision a scenario in which this is because he is a black individual. He assumes that it has to do with his race, and that these women are bigots. They're racist because they brush past him, or they just, half of these people probably have their heads down over their phones. We're a phone-addicted culture. I'm not. Like, I'll look where I'm going. Most people won't. At the very least, they're listening to an MP3 player. 99% of the time, they're distracted by a phone. Yeah, they're not looking at where they're going, so they're not looking at the color of your skin, Greg. They don't even know you're black. They just know that you're in their way. That's essentially what it boils down to. Being courteous and polite, and not being a distant asshole when in public situations is totally lost at this point on most cultures in the Western world. It's totally foreign to these people. It's not like, you're almost arguing like the Nifty 50s line, like people should be laying down their jacket for the woman over the puddle, helping Granny cross the street and stuff like that. Like, people are still not like totally crude in public situations. Of course, I see it all the time. I live in small town America. Homogenous community. It's basically anyone you see, they're probably white. Male or female, doesn't really matter. They're probably white. They're mostly part of the same New England culture. And, we have a penchant for supposedly being more polite than many of the more urbanized parts of the country. Like, the biggest settlement in this state is Burlington. And Burlington's a far cry from New York City. Like, a couple city blocks of Manhattan, in some cases, probably have as many people as downtown Burlington. The Manhattan tip alone has more people than the whole metro area. So you're all congested. Your city, your borough, has more of a population than this whole state. Every single one of the boroughs does. They'd be on par with more with New Hampshire, which has like twice as many people in it as Vermont does, despite being slightly smaller in land area. So, sucks to be you. You're packed in like sardines by my standards. I love a rural area. If I'm seeing it in small town America among members of the same race, then unless you're saying there's a fundamental difference between these urban New York City residents and like the average Vermonter or something, it's not because you're black. That's not why they're walking into you or expecting you to veer out of their way and calling you rude if you don't. More likely, some of these people are radfems. They're third-wave feminists. They think you should move out of the way as a form of chivalry because you're male. You've got privilege or something like that. You're almost arguing against your own social justice warrior line by limiting this to just females. Don't dudes do the same thing? If someone's on their phone, trust me, they don't know what race you are. If they walk into you, they only become aware of that after they look up from their phone where they're playing Angry Birds or something like that. They're texting one of their brainless friends. That's when they know what race you are. It almost is helpful. If you think everyone's racist, well, they're not really, they don't even care that you're black until they look up after they've accidentally bumped into you. They're so absorbed into their phones that a bomb could go off around them, they wouldn't notice half the time. Oh, yeah, I gotta get the high score here. No, this is really important, a Twitter update or something like that. And then they turn around, they see like a building's on fire. What do? The first thing they do is tweet about it and then start recording. It's not a polite society. No, it's a technologically adept, socially inept society. I'm basically a hermit in some ways. I avoid going out into public because people are like that and I don't like it. I want one person to talk to me at a time. I want interpersonal relationships, and I don't want crowds. I'm not interested in the average person in society because I think they're a dumbass, honestly. And if we look at the news, we find that's indeed the case. It's pretty much objective. But if I'm going out into public and someone bumps into me, I don't immediately search for a rationalization of why they would do that, and it must be on purpose. It's because this person bumped into me because they're a female and they hate men. This person bumped into me because they're gay and they hate me because I'm straight or whatever. Or this person must be a religious Christian. They saw like my Christian Death shirt or whatever. They assumed I was like a devil worshiper, so they just decided to be rude to me. No, it's probably because they have their head down over their phone or their head in the clouds and they just didn't notice. Or they just assumed that they've got an ego and so they think they're better than everyone around them. And so they bumped into me because they're like, well, get out of my way, asshole. I've got important things to do. I got to go to my my double shift at Wendy's. I've got to go get to my car. I got to go to the theater. You know, like anyone uses those anymore at all. I was texting. Couldn't you see that I was using my all-important surveillance apparatus, my slave chain, aka my smartphone? You know, couldn't you see, asshole, that I was doing? That's what they're thinking in their heads. Not thinking, oh, a black man, he's got to move out of my way. It's not race. Has nothing to do with race. Never will. If someone bumps into me, it doesn't have to do with race. It doesn't have to do with religion or whatever. Or the fact that I'm a long-haired male, so I know submissive or some bullshit like that, some cultural bullcrap. No, it has to do with the fact that a lot of people just don't look at where they're going. That's why they're veering into your lane. And Greg Howard says it all. Oh, they're in my lane. Well, why is it yours? Why isn't it theirs? Why shouldn't you move out of the way? Is it because you're a black male, so they should make way for you? Because of oppression or something? You're making the same you're projecting a claim onto them like they're pretending that they're better than you. While claiming that you're better than them and that they should move out of your way is what it boils down to. What it really should be is people should be polite enough to consider not jostling one another. But you're in New York City, so that's never going to happen. It wouldn't matter what the racial composition of any given street corner is when you're crossing. You're gonna get hassled. You're gonna maybe nudged out of the way by people, and it's not gonna. Some other black male might do that to you as well. But you ignore that because I guess you consider that okay, as long as it's not a white female. And it's just really weird for the New York Times to allow something like this to be published. Even other like liberal, like The Hill, is calling them crazy. You've got other outlets that are lamestream journalism. They're mainstream media. They're legacy media. They're calling them out too. They're saying, well, we're not exactly sure what point you're trying to make. This is New York City. It's not the middle of nowhere. It's not a situation where you've got two people on the sidewalk for 3 blocks in any direction and they knock into one another because they're just both trying to be assholes. This is a situation where anything you look at... I went to New York City at night, and it was still crowded. The roads were crowded to the point at which New York City's roads at night in Manhattan or up, even several hours north of that, resemble our roads at rush hour on the day before a major holiday, honestly. Your roads in the middle of the day are absolute nightmares to the point at which they're virtually impassable. I don't know how you people even exist in a place like that. As far as the sidewalks go, it's non-stop people milling. It's like if these people really chose to move through traffic, they could block all the cars because they could never get enough momentum to escape from it. The whole city would be choked like the artery of someone who only eats meat for a living, or their entire diet is bacon. Their veins would begin to resemble the streets of Manhattan. And Manhattan's less congested than the other boroughs around it because the roads are straight and not completely anemic and underdeveloped. Because they actually changed their road plan in the 1800s. So they're better off. You go to Boston, it's even worse. Boston's less than the size of Manhattan. I think the whole Boston metro area has about as many people in it as Manhattan. They've got even worse problems. You're in a big city. Yeah, people are rude. Just sort of happens. That's about all. Peace out.